Retro anime. How did we find it? How does it hold up? Unpacking the ins and outs of being an old school nerd and proving that 80s kids can't remember a damn thing right. These are the mindless midlife musings of the anime nerd.
Welcome to Mindless Midlife Musings of the Anime Nerd. I'm Rick, and I'm joined by the rest of our panel, Vic, Brian, and Lynette, with our special guest, Angel. Angel's joining us again this week. We're very happy to have you.
Hey.
Now, in this episode, it's Top Gun meets giant robots. We're talking mecha, music, and the power of love, which means we can only be talking about Macross Plus.
Oh, well, you said giant robots. So
Name another series that you can define as Top Gun meets giant robots.
I wonder if Gundam has the same type of feel.
I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think it could work. So Macross Plus is a 4-episode anime OVA and theatrical movie. It was the second sequel to the original Super Dimension Fortress Macross television series, but the first that took place in the official timeline, which is something we'll get into. Both the OVA and the movie were released in Japan by Bandai Visual and in North America and Europe by Manga Entertainment. Manga released the series on VHS, dubbed and subtitled, and Laserdisc formats in Europe as their first title in the North American market. Now, this later on, a Blu-ray of the OVA and movie edition was released in about 2013 or so as the Macross Plus complete Blu-ray box. Both the OVA releases feature the international version English dubs as a language track, with episode 4 using a newer Bandai dub, which we'll get into. And both of these Blu-ray releases were only available in Japan. To this day, the only way you can find this series is on older DVD releases, and I think that's it. I don't think it's ever seen the Western shores in a higher definition format.
At least not yet.
That's it. So let's get into this. We've made no bones about the fact that we are Macross fanatics. At least two of us are.
All right, no, let's talk about the higher definition format.
Sure.
I think that Macross Plus is one of the, especially from the vintage standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
I love the definition in Macross Plus for it being coming out of the universe.
It is a very quintessentially 90s style animated film or feature.
Oh, sure.
And I think that speaks to, that's part of its charm, part of its quality. But I mean, it's also part of such a bigger picture product.
It felt like if I was watching Macross Plus in the 90s, I would see Macross Plus, and then I would see the same type of art style as Digimon. You know, how Digimon went from the animated to the computer generated.
Sure.
That's where I felt the earlier versions of that in Macross. But even then, they were doing some ridiculous things. I don't know if they're aerodynamically correct. But I don't know if a plane can actually do those maneuvers, but it looked cool as shit.
Yeah, and Brian, to elaborate a little bit on yours, I think Macross Plus, I don't know if it was the first, but it was one of the earliest examples of computer-generated animation in anime.
Yes. Yeah. They specifically for the Mecha.
Mhm.
Not the whole thing. A lot of it was hand-drawn, but they did use a lot of CG footage for it, which was pretty cool considering
Considering the time.
Yeah, and it's worth noting that that the series was inspired by the United States. It was inspired by the U.S. Air Force's the ATF project from the 80s and 90s, which usually pits two prototype fighters against each other in a competition to for the government to decide which one they want to use as their next actual fighter. So for the purposes of that, they actually came up to America and spent some time at Edwards Base and all that stuff. So it was pretty well researched when they started the project.
I thought the researchers was watching Top Gun and say, we're going to make these guys test pilots and see what happens.
Yes, so it's my elevator pitch for everybody that's ever watched the series that I ever pitch it to. It's Top Gun with giant robots, and I can't think of a better way to describe it. No, Lynette, you had a pretty good description, though. I liked it.
Boys with big toys. That's pretty much what it was. That's all it was. This is the whole time. It was just these two boys playing with their big old toys.
Boys with big toys, with $40 billion toys.
I mean, he made a cartoon animal out of the smoke that came out of his engines.
Yes, he drew with
Because
his
he was,
contrails.
yeah. All while
Ye-
sounding like he was drunk. So it was, I was
So
like, yeah.
yes, so this series is part of a bigger picture universe, the Macross universe, the franchise itself. Macross is known well over for those who know. Each part of the story, or each segment, each series is a self-contained story, and there are Easter eggs and little bits and pieces that interconnectivity between them. But you can watch pretty much any one of these without having seen any of the other ones and still have an enjoyable experience.
Enjoyable experience, but I wish that, like for instance, Bowman.
Yep.
He's half human, half Zentradi.
Right.
Right. He looks like he just walked out of Street Fighter. Right.
Right.
He is just a massive.
He's like alternate Guile.
No, I was the alternate guy.
It's the player 2 version of
I'm alternate in Bison. That's what he have with his chin, his ears. He's just massive.
Yes.
Why? That's the one part they don't really give you that aspect of the battle between the humans and the Zentradi.
Right. They don't touch on the Space War 1 or any of the stuff that happens in Super Dimension Fortress Macross. You're just brought into this world sort of blind to those finer details. But I mean, we can ask Lynette, who has never experienced any other Macross. Do you feel like you were confused by any of that?
No, it seemed like it was far enough where they just brought him in as an alien or half alien type character, and it
You're
was
already
like,
on
oh,
another
this is
world.
yeah, you're already on Eden,
Yeah.
and so they're already bringing in like folding and all
Yeah.
that other stuff. So you kind of
So I guess the point of that statement is this: when you are talking about somebody who's half, like for instance, let's say Star Trek.
Sure.
Say Star Trek, and you hear Spock, who is half human, half Vulcan, green some of blood, some of
Right.
you automatically know. As soon as you hear Vulcan, there are certain characteristics that alien race already has. They have logic, they have pointy ears, green bloods, and they're strong. I mean, you automatically know these things when you hear the word Vulcan, right? You don't have that same feeling when you hear the word Zentradi. If you heard that, who's never seen it, like, did you hear what race he was from, Lynette?
I heard it, but I didn't really understand the name until you clarified. But I also don't they have like I think it was one episode they were talking about like uh bloodlust is inherited with that his half side. So they give you kind of like that hint, that kind of explains why he tried to kill the dude who
Right.
saved him from a free fall. I mean, so it gives you it gives, like gives you like a little bit of a hint, like he could have activated his alien side and
Right.
subconsciously was like, if I do this guy will die. And
So here's my biggest problem with stuff like this. Like, for instance, and the best example I can use it is James Bond, right?
Mm.
No Time to Die. They have this scene where you are not No Time to Die, the one before that, where you meet Blofeld for the first time,
Right.
right? So they go through this entire thing, and then at the end of the movie, they say his name is Blofeld, and we're supposed to be, we as the audience are like, oh my god, that's Blofeld.
Mm-hmm.
If you are like Lynette and you hear the first time hearing Blofeld, or in this case, Zentradi, they don't give you what that actually means. And that's my only problem with it.
So now I'm going to counter you on this one, because they don't give you that in Star Trek either. Now, you know this because you're a Star Trek fan.
You watched it from forever, yeah.
Yeah, if you picked up Star Trek Into Darkness and you watch it and you're like, what's up with the pointy-eared guy? Is he an elf? Like, they don't give you that.
They do.
And then you just have to follow it, and they give you little hints of it in his dialogue, just similarly to how they do in Macross.
No, but they give you no. They actually do break it down, and then I will counter your counter with the stove, and I'm gonna cook with hot grease on my stove. As I'm saying that there's so many examples of what it means to be a Vulcan in Into Darkness. Everything from the first time you see Spock and everything that he's doing, even to the reason why he's doing it, that leads up all the way to him actually telling you that I'm supposed to be without emotion, but when I went and I mind, neither here nor there. We're out the buddy trail too much.
Right.
There is actually evidence of what it means to be a Vulcan through exposition that you don't get in that same type of context when you're dealing with Macross Plus in general.
I'll give you that. I think that it's probably I can only speculate, of course, but in my opinion, it's more that Gold he's the foil, right? He's the heavy. You don't need as much on him because, in my opinion, it's pretty clear that it's an Isamu and Myung story, and Gold is the third point in the triangle, right? He's the anti-hero, the antagonist.
I mean, it's Macross. There's always a triangle.
Right. That's sort of a part of its thing over the years. But in this one specifically, he's never the hero. Like Myung is never in love with Gold, right? She's always pining after Isamu. And Gold is there as an antagonist to Isamu. So his alien, if anything, it's racist as shit, but his alien heritage isn't a subject of the plot so much as it's just a byproduct of that character. And it's I consider it like an Easter egg to know about the Zentradi because you watched the first series. It's like, oh, I know what Zentradi are. I know what this is all about. But to somebody coming in, it's just like, well, this is the bad guy. He's an alien and he's and that's what he is.
I think if they had named him better, he could have had a bigger romantic involvement. But seriously, what's your dad's name? Gold.
I mean, considering, he was a mixed race. He was half Zentradi. I mean, all the other Zentradis just had first names.
Right. Well, yeah, most of them were just and weird ass names. If you'd given them a genuine Zentradi name, like you haven't experienced this yet, Lynette, but their names are weird. It's like Brit Guy, and it's written with like 3 L's and
Guys is weird, but still weird nonetheless.
Right. Nothing school device is weird. So the story starts out with our hero Isamu, or Tom Cruise if you want to go that route. And,
Maverick.
It starts out with Maverick.
Maverick and Iceman episode.
Yep, Maverick and Iceman.
Maverick 1.
It's
hold on. Can we? I know this is a completely different genre. It has nothing to do with it, but can we talk about that whole Maverick and Iceman scene in the locker room the first time they meet? They're talking after the flight, and Iceman goes, "You're dead." He bites his teeth out. I've always had a problem with that.
That's what?
Like, who does that?
Because look, have you really ever bite your teeth? That shit hurts.
Yeah.
I never know. But I'm also not Val Kilmer, so or Gold Bowman in this case. So, but yeah, no, you're not wrong. But lest we devolve into slamming the shit out of Top Gun, which I refuse to do because I still love that movie.
We will not. Well, we're not.
That's right. We're gonna go to blows on this. Let's stick to this. The world building in this is great in a sense of if you'd only ever seen the original, you'd have been limited to Earth and the solar system. And then in this one, you come in fresh to a completely new, fully fleshed out, fully realized world that's clearly been lived in for a while. And this series takes place about 30 years after the original series. And that's it's average for this. On average, the franchise jumps forward any number of years between seasons, or I don't know what to call them, stories.
Yeah. The only way to advance tech, to make it cool and exciting still.
Keep it cool. And what's one of the things I admire about this series also is that amongst its its relatives in the franchise, it also features the eldest antagonists. Most of the Macross series features protagonists. Most of the Macross series features protagonists who are in their teens, 17. Like Hikaru was like 17 or 16 when the series starts. And these are all characters who are very obviously young adults.
Yeah, they're seasoned pilots, and
Yeah. And I appreciate that they did that just because it helped sell it on what it was doing. The series attempting to bring a drop of realism to the concept. One of the most infamous things about Macross is its use of fighter jets that transform into giant robots for combat. It's not something they really delve into this series, but the whole point of them is revealed in the first series, Super Dimension Fortress Macross, where you realize that they have designed these fighter jets to transform into giant robots because the Zentradi are originally a giant race of aliens. Throughout the series, they develop a micronization process that lets the Zentradi shrink down to, I want to say human size, but let's be honest, gold is a big. So probably like mini giant size. They shrink everybody down to Andre the Giant size.
Or Shaq.
Or Shaq. Yeah, Shaq
there you
size.
go.
It's like not quite
That's it. Confirmed.
small.
Shaq is Zentradi.
Shaq is a Zentron. And
we gotta make that like a hashtag. Exactly.
that's right.
Right.
Shaq is Zentron. So it's one of those things where if you've watched the original series, you get a lot of little Easter eggs and notes of that. But I like that Lynette got to watch this without that because it sort of just lets her experience the world with fresh eyes. And this Eden world is so unique, distinctive from any of the other series, worlds that are featured in any of the other series in Macross. It's also unique in that this series has the other villain in this series, besides Gold, who I still say is a villain, fight me on it, is Sharon Apple, the Virtuoid Idol. And this is unique to this series because music has, throughout this entire franchise, is an element of good, a force of good. It's used to stop war. It's used to calm Zentradi fighting instincts. It's used, which sort of, knowing that sort of explains like why Gold might be fascinated with Mion. She used to sing, and music is a soothing thing to their culture. But in this one, we get Sharon Apple, the Virtuoid Idol.
We got to stop with the whole. It's not soothing. They had a whole war-based tactic based on music, right?
Well, their whole the Zentradi society is one that is cultureless. So they had no idea what music was. They had no idea what
straight war.
Yeah, they had no idea what they didn't have sex. They didn't know what a kiss was. They like nothing. It was complete. The genders were kept completely separate, and they were warring races. So for them, music and love was something that they just couldn't possibly fathom or understand. So it's culture shock when they first saw it and experienced it from these tiny little humans on this spaceship they've been trying to catch. They don't really touch on that a lot in this series specifically, but the power of music as a weapon is definitely in play here with Sharon Apple. And I'll tell you the story about Sharon Apple is that recently Macross Plus was featured they had a Fathom event now that they're starting to bring it back over here to the United States. So we went to go, my sister, I sent her to go see the movie. And she brought all her friends to go see the movie because she was a dutiful sister who was going to help me support my favorite franchise. And one of them decided that they wanted to get high before they went to go see this movie. So
I already know where this is going.
Had a couple edibles, sat down, and then Sharon Apple's concert starts. They were balls to the wall.
I wish you guys could see our faces now. There is a collective and gasp over the face, like, oh no. Like, no, oh no. Oh no.
That must have been one hell of a trip for him.
Right?
It could go either very good or very bad, depending on how they.
Well, on a big screen, that must have been epic to watch.
I mean, apparently it went very good, but still.
Spot question for you.
What's up?
We are talking about just concerts of the
AI.
Well, not the AI. I want to list a couple of people. Sharon Apple's concert, Homegirl from Fifth Element,
right?
Never Alone, or Never Enough from The Greatest Showman, or the finale, the Live Aid concert in Bohemian Rhapsody. You can only have one.
Oh, you can only have one?
You only have one.
Do you have to be high?
Okay, so to answer your question, Brian, I quit.
I couldn't.
You can only have one.
All phenomenal performances. No.
They really are. Yes, I couldn't possibly. But I mean, I guess if I had to, I'm gonna pick Sharon Apple just because I'm a Macross nerd through and through. So any chance I can get closer to that world being a reality, I'm in.
I think the whole point of that was that that's the quality that they put to that concert.
It is absolutely. You're right. It's crazy cool, and just as a world building element, the advanced holographics and the way that the music is. I don't know what is it like brainwaves, I guess, that they're using to like
bracelets.
Yeah, and they're just
like
tuning themselves into the emotional state of the audience to like build a bigger show. It's just it's wild. The whole thing's wild. And the music for this entire series done by the absolutely adored and amazing Yoko, who did Cowboy Bebop and just a host of other series. I think this was her first thing that she'd ever scored or written any music for. And her career just shot off like a Valkyrie into orbit.
I mean, can you blame it? I mean, it was good.
Impressive.
Thank you. And it is good. Like all the music in this is so good, but what's great about all the music in this is how different it is. Like each song is like its own damn language, and it's distinctly, just audibly, they'll sound different, not just lyrics, but the style of the music. If you ever listen to the soundtrack absent the animation accompaniment, it's just as thrilling because each track is like a whole different experience. It's really very impressive stuff.
And it was her second composer for anime job.
Thank you, sir. First being?
The first one being Please Save My Earth, and then she was also an arranger in Porco Rosso.
Oh, no shit. That's tight. There you go. A little fun fact for the podcast. We're good for some of that stuff.
Also to note, she also did composed Angel Voice from Macross Dynamite 7.
Yeah, probably I think we discussed in the anime episode, one of my favorite Macross tracks ever.
And then also Cowboy Bebop, Rossifon. She did Ghost in the Shell Standalone Complex, Ghost Rain, Standalone Complex Second Gig. She's done a lot in anime.
Oh yeah, no, she's taken off.
Hey Vic, you gotta be careful. We're supposed to be mindless musings.
I'm mindlessly musing over her freaking work history here.
It is impressive.
Even Google is mindful. I'm just throwing that out there.
I'm on Wikipedia.
One of the things that I always love about Macross, besides the love triangles, is the mecha designs, and I touched on that earlier. But something worth mentioning is that Kawamori, he likes to design his mecha based on real world fighter planes. And the YF-19 took a lot of styling cues from the Grumman X-29 and the Lockheed Martin F-22 Raptor, which was in development at the time. And the YF-21 is based more on a Northrop Grumman's YF-23 prototype. And the VF-11 Thunderbolt's kind of patterned after, and I don't know how to pronounce it, the Sukhoi Su-27. So, and that's just for all the airplane nerds who might be listening, because it's a Macross episode. You usually pull in some airplane nerds. Got you guys. It's good.
What the hell just happened?
I just thought the blue or black one looked kind of cool. I mean, I didn't even know what type of plane it was. I was like, oh, that one looks kind of cool. And then it transformed. I was like, I like that one better. That was all I know. I throw in another chick moment. I have no idea about the plane. I'm just going, oh, look how pretty.
I can't help it.
We call that basic.
No, then sign me up for this. I did not. I had a problem with the YF-21.
Yeah?
Like, it's not like it had, the wing was morphing.
Well, I think that was supposed to be indicative of him feeling the plane. Like he could feel it.
Morphing.
Yeah, I don't think it was actually morphing. That was his feeling. That's how it felt to him. Because as he was connected to the plane via via that brain, whatchamacallit,
mind meld.
It's like he felt the plane. So everything that he felt physically he felt it through the plane.
Flag on the play. Flag on the play. Flag on the play. illegal grounding. What I'm saying is this, right? When we're dealing with, say, Gunbuster, right? I'm not talking about Diebuster, that fucking ridiculous thing. I'm talking about Gunbuster. Gunbuster, when they do a transformation or anything that happens in Gunbuster, you see everything that happens with it, right?
Sure.
Where it goes for. Now we're talking about the mecha design for the YS-21.
Mm-hmm.
The metal curves. Do you know how hard the amount of energy it would take to get metal to curve, immediately harden, and then be functional?
This is the nuclear engineer talking about.
Like we're not talking about the F-14 Tomcat, which is also by we're not talking about that with the wings. I can do it too, but
Brian, you're talking about, jets that transform to giant humanoid robots to, fight with zero issue and not have to worry about loss of energy or anything else, and they can carry 1 billion missiles with no issue.
it curves.
I'm going to challenge this, Brian. If it curved, how are they able to make fully functioning, fully transformable toys of it?
What the hell?
So,
Good.
obviously animation magic, right? Some things are going to curve to give a sense of kinetic energy. When you're animating movement, you have to disproportionately warp things to make them appear to be moving more kinetically, more faster than they ordinarily. So it's an animation trick. So you're not wrong that things
It
curve
looks damn cool
during transformations and stuff like that, because it's part of the point to make you feel that way.
It would have been more believable if the wing, instead of the same way it extended out, right? Part of the wing could have had a joint, and then that part would have went down.
Brian, it would also be more believable if the Zentradi never existed.
But I get what he's saying, Vic. He's talking about how, I had just said earlier in this episode that they were attempting to root this in a little more of a factual sort of world, which is really hilarious, because if we ever cover Macross 7, all this shit goes right out the window.
Oh.
But but yeah, no, I see what you're saying. But my defense of that, and I don't intend on defending this series, is that
I don't care.
Is that it's animation magic.
No, I don't care.
It doesn't need
I
defense.
don't care.
Yeah, I don't give
Hey, Brian, while you're at it, you want us to get off your lawn too?
Yeah.
Brian, so you had beef with the 21. Did you like the 19?
No, the 21's still my favorite.
Oh,
Jesus Christ.
Lynette's a 21 fan too, though.
I like the 21 color. The 19, the fact that the globy window sphere, I like that part. See, it's totally technical. I am very technical. The globy window sphere with the green lines.
Yeah, 100%. It's a technical term. When Young Newman's working on his plane, he's like, "Get the curvy thing back up there."
The word she used was globy.
Globy, that's right. Get the globy thing.
And then he had foot pedals too, so that was kind of cool. I like that.
Yep.
So I like the color of the 21. The 19 looked a little bit more functional. So see, it's kind of like shoes. You have the cute ones, and then you have the functional ones.
That's where we are now in life. This is the way we have the most destructive ever designed, and we said we have shoes. That's where we are.
Just stand out before I devolve into this. One of the things about the series is the subject matter. It's a little heavy. We had left. We just talked about hentai in our previous episode, and I said we're going to do something a little less in the next episode, and I kind of turned out to be a liar. This was a little too, but it was. I appreciated it because they, it wasn't done titillatingly. It was intended to be a traumatic experience.
He's not saying he appreciated the.
No, of course not. I don't appreciate the. I appreciate that they didn't use the as a titillation. They used it as a traumatic story driving moment, which is good.
They didn't use it to get your socks off. They used it to show why Myung was the way she was.
Right, which I think is it's interesting because it's such a stark parallel from last episode. We went from completely different use of the same horrible thing, except now we're showing that it's a horrible thing. But not
butterfly was harmed in this picture.
No butterflies were harmed in the making of this one. Do you guys? How do you guys feel about that triangle? Do you feel like that was executed well enough? I've heard complaints that Myung was far too forgiving of Gold, and that she shouldn't have not given him that leeway. But I don't know. I think that these characters are a lot more emotionally complex than they're given credit for, considering it's a science fiction series about giant robots.
It's a classic example of girl likes bad boy.
Ah, there you go. I like that approach.
All for bad boy. So no matter how bad the experience was, there's still some connection to the bad boy.
Add to that, it's literally just 4 episodes. So I mean, considering that in 4 episodes they got a lot of emotion into it, it's like, that's probably what people didn't like, that they didn't elaborate more, but it was only 4 episodes.
Right.
So, if I had another episode or two, they could have probably stretched that out a bit more, but
I mean, what are they thinking? Is 3x3 eyes?
yeah, each episode was not an hour long.
It certainly didn't feel like it. To me, this series flies by. I think it chews up every single second of animation it has to tell a compelling story. I wasn't bored by any of it. The movie version, not as successful in that. If you watch the movie version, in my opinion, it kind of drags a bit, just because of the way they re-edited the storyline and omitted components of it and stuff.
Yeah, like the whole omission of the whole asteroid belt sequence in the very beginning, that was just hurtful.
Right. I feel like those scenes draw in new viewers, particularly considering what the show's supposed to be about. And in the movie, they omit that. You spend a lot of time still trying to figure out what this Isamu guy is like. So I like that in the first episode, they really kind of lay that out well. He's an arrogant maverick type pilot, and he's all too happy to chase the next adrenaline rush versus, doing his duty in an efficient manner. And he's obviously tailor-made to put his life on the line and go test out new fighter planes. But it's a character flaw, I would say, in that he carries it with him through the whole series. I don't know necessarily that he resolves that character flaw. I guess maybe a little, because it's the whole thing with Sharon, right? Sharon Apple falls in love with him because she's connected to Myung, and Myung provides her with her emotions, right? So her love of Isamu becomes Sharon's love of Isamu. And as with all AI stories, AI goes apeshit.
And the whole thing is Sharon Apple wants to provide him with the ultimate thrill.
Right. The thrill of dying.
At 1,000,000 miles an hour.
Which is the kind of thing only an AI would figure out.
Yeah, obviously, because, he likes to fly fast and fly dangerously. He obviously is looking for death.
But that's it. That's her whole shtick. I love him so much, I'm going to kill him because that's clearly what he wants.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm raising my hand because I have a question.
I sincerely hope you ask it.
What? What? What?
Ryan is sitting there. He's like, "Gay?"
But yeah, that's Sharon Apple's. I love that, though. I love that element of it, that the AI, of course, sees a logical end to this and is applying her weird basic instinct to this. It's like, well, he's trying so hard to kill himself, I'm going to help him.
You just dated yourself hard.
What?
You said basic instinct. You know, basic instinct movie.
Not the Sharon Stone basic instinct.
Brian actually dated himself because the words basic instinct literally drew him to the movie. Pulled out the reverse card.
I'm in. Soft porn references to describe the emotional impact of this. That's where the show has gone to. Okay.
I feel like after the previous episode, at this point, all bets are off, and we can reference any sort of softcore pornography we want to. It's the notwithstanding, the term basic instinct did exist before Sharon Stone ice picked people to death. So let's circle back to the point. Yes, it did. That the AI was warped. The AI was obviously severely flawed, and it was a chipset that they installed into her that activated that. But they didn't really delve too deep into what it was. It was apparently some kind of AI programming that they were using for the new Ghost Fighter. And they decided, you know what, we're gonna throw that in our virtual idol. What could possibly go wrong?
What was the trigger for her to realize that Isamu was there? When did Sharon Apple realize Isamu's on this planet?
Well, I think when she became fully sentient, she took over the Macross, right? She took over the entire Earth Defense Network. So as soon as his ass showed up, she's like, "Here he is,"
He knows.
right? Or am I wrong? Like, I mean, I don't know if it's
That's about that seems about accurate. I mean, he showed up. I mean, he was showing up for Myung, who was also on the Macross. So
I think Myung was bait, and she knew that
Yeah.
Isamu would come for her.
so yeah, the second he entered the atmosphere or broke out of fold, she knew.
Right.
So and this is the exact opposite of an orbital beam cannon, right?
Yeah, this is without a doubt the exact opposite.
So we've already said that orbital beam cannons are not a good idea.
Yeah,
And say that AI maybe not a good idea either.
I think
Well, to be fair, there were orbital beam cannons in Macross Plus as well.
there were, but I mean, historically, not just orbital beam cannons are a terrible idea. An argument I will continue to make. I'm gonna put that on a shirt. But sentient AI is a very bad idea, which I will say the Boomer Largo proved from Bubblegum Crisis. You got a sentient AI with an orbital beam cannon. That's just the worst.
So honestly, I think that needs to be a shirt. Orbital beam cannons are a horrible idea.
Agreed.
I'll work on it. I'll get it in the merch store. You guys can all buy orbital beam satellites are a terrible idea. But I love that whole that dogfight in episode 4 is unreal.
Oh God, it is insane.
This is where a mindless musing is going to come in here. Fun fact that episode 4 is dubbed in a completely separate instance because they lost the rights to it. I wrote a note about it here. They lost due to a rights issue at the time. The entire sound mix, including music and the sound effects, had to be recreated from scratch for episode 4. And only a handful of songs were allowed to be retained. So then they had to go back in and redub it with new actors because it happened years later and put in entirely different music scenes for their second attempt at dubbing because of the rights issues. So worth noting for purists who want to experience this in its OG 90s format, don't buy the Blu-ray because you'll be pretty upset if you watch episode 4 as it is different. And honestly, guys, don't buy the Blu-ray because right now the Blu-ray is like $400,000 on the internet. So because it's just that rare. I'm exaggerating slightly, but only slightly.
Yeah, I'll just wait for Big West to actually commission stuff in the US. You know it's gonna happen.
How did you feel about the love triangle? Successfully executed?
I'm a little meh about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it was needed. I feel like it was just another Macross element brought in because it's a Macross element.
Do you feel that the story was weaker because of Gold's involvement in the triangle? Would it have been better if he were just an antagonist?
I didn't think that. I thought the girl was just an extra.
Coming in from the other point.
The two guys had just enough anger and hate and conflict with each other that I felt like they were just like, we need to throw a girl in here. It's looking weird. And
This Top Gun didn't need Kelly McGillis. We're doing it without her.
I didn't really. I felt just kind of meh.
Yeah.
About her because they had enough
between
the two of them that they kind of drove the whole series, I guess. But when they threw her in, I was like, "Is she there?
Why?
What's going on?
Why are you here, Myung? Go home."
Well, the level of convenience, Isamu, test pilot, Gold, test pilot for the competitor. And then, Myung, which pretty much provided the feeling and emotion to an AI that decides to take over everything and try to kill him. It's like they're all so interconnected. It's like that level of convenience is insane.
Movie magic, guys. Come on.
I still love the series. Don't get me wrong. It is still a phenomenal series.
It was very
I will
good.
smack Brian if he disagrees with anything again on it. But yeah, it's got its tiny little issues.
How they all ended up at Lookout Point at the same damn time?
Hey, Eden's a small planet apparently.
I guess tiny as.
It's like Pluto sized.
So now I will say that it's been 30 years since the original series. So I mean, the time it would have taken them to find the planet, let alone colonize it, is probably the only city. Like Lookout Point's probably the only point. Was they probably only had that place there for like 10 years.
Yeah, because they had the city, and then everything else was test pilot desert.
But I'm digging into the weeds on it.
I love, not gonna lie, it could have been Earth.
Sure, a better Earth.
Yeah. And that's a. So again, this statement is going to remind you to subscribe to Mindless Musings of the Anime Nerd and see our previous episodes when we're talking about Gunbuster, right?
Sure.
And when we were talking about Gunbuster, one of the biggest things we talked about there was the consequence of time, right? So here we are, Gunbusters, one of the final episodes, we talk about 15 years has passed, and you see the effects of the co-protagonist coming into time travel. Not even time travel.
Time dilation.
Yeah, time dilation.
Yeah.
Here we have the YF-19 and the YF-21. A whole 30, you said 30 years?
And 30 years since Space War 1 when this takes place.
I wish we could have seen more of the previous generation.
I agree with you 100%. I would love to have seen I want more of Eden. Like I don't necessarily need more of Isamu and Myung and Gold, but I want to see more of that sandwiched chunk in the middle. How did we get from building the Mega Road 2, which is something if you watch the other series, and to colonizing these other planets? And it's something Macross never ever touches on in any of these series. In every series, you end up with a new planet, and it's got aliens on it, or it doesn't, and it's a planet that they've inhabited.
And I think that's why I love Gunbuster so much, is that we saw the effects of space travel. We saw the effects.
Right.
We saw the physics of everything that they were doing. You lose that in Macross.
You do. Comparing the two, this has less episodes to tell its story, but it doesn't matter because other series with like 50 episodes don't get to that level of emotional weight that Gunbuster did in 6. To compare, Gunbuster's like the gold standard for science fiction storytelling. I don't know, space operas. Macross is like the Marvel movie of science fiction. Like you're gonna just buy the ticket and go for the ride, and you don't question too much.
It's a Too Fast, Too Furious.
I'm gonna have to disagree with you on that one.
It's at least the Marvel movies, right?
You're right. That's Diebuster. That's Gunbuster.
You just have an unnatural hate for Diebuster.
Honestly, that's Studio Trigger is the Fast and Furious of studios. Like everything they make is balls to the walls, bad crazy.
It's what Trigger does.
But yes, I agree with you, Brian. Gunbuster storytelling is much heavier. They spend a little more time with the repercussions of a thing. In this one, space folding is it's like Star Trek. Space folding is just another way to travel. Like we're just and we're there. Congratulations. But I mean, it's
months is supposed to go by.
Right, like in theory, Myung would be old and dead by the time Isamu probably made it back to Earth. But
that wouldn't make for a fun show.
Right, it's just not how space travel works in this universe. Is it as effective as Gunbuster? No, Gunbuster puts a lot more importance on that. But Macross isn't here for that part of the story. Macross is here to give you your giant robot fix.
Ergo Furious.
I stand by my Marvel comparison.
Yeah,
like Brian,
because it's silly entertainment, but fun.
Man, I'll give you the fact that they have so many movies as Marvels. Maybe. I mean, they have so many series as Marvel. I may give you that, but
do they break as many cities? I think they break as many cities. I mean, as soon as they did come in, it was like they're like, "Oh, we're here. We don't need that building anymore."
They definitely break as much as the Avengers do. I absolutely. And you've only seen this one, Lynette. Just wait.
There's more.
They break all of the things in this franchise.
They spent 30 years putting everything back together just
for the next series to come and break everything.
Break everything.
That's what I was looking. I was like, you just got there. Why are you breaking a building?
It's if there's a flaw to the Macross franchise, it's that they are disconnected stories, and that you only get little Easter eggs to things that happened in other series. So this trip to Eden that you had over these 4 episodes, you will never go there again. You never revisit Eden. Doesn't matter. Same thing with Macross 7, and they have a planet Zola that you're never going back there. You're there once, that's it. They don't spend time on that kind of world building because they're more focused on the planes and the individual character stories. The main love triangles is generally where their focus is on these, and it's popcorn, right? It really is. Doesn't change how much I love it, but that's what it is. I still like the Fast and the Furious movies. Not all of them, but I still like them.
I think Brian's brain is melting.
No, I felt like that was like a guilty pleasure admitted. It was like I still like Fast and Furious. Fuck you.
I enjoy him too. It's a great series to sit there, turn off your brain, and watch.
Right. Macross,
except for the second one that took place in Miami, I still call BS on getting from downtown to the freaking Keys in 5 minutes flat.
Nope, we're not doing this. This is anime nerd, not movie nerds.
Sorry.
Stay on topic, you miserable bastards.
That is actually something I feel the same way. Fast and Furious, Too Fast, Too Furious. They say bullshit every time.
Every time.
But I do point out the fact that you can see the Walmart in Florida City, though.
It's all in the cars, y'all. Shut up.
All right. So as we start to attempt to wrap this up, we'll ask our usual question about Macross Plus, about what we do any anime. Is do you feel that the anime itself holds up? Could you re-release it to a modern audience, find success? Did you like it? Etc. Etc. Let's start with Vic. Vic, give me your final thoughts on Macross Plus.
Well, considering Big West decided to test the waters in the US after the whole Harmony Gold thing with Macross Plus, the movie edition last December, and according to their numbers for its age, it actually did really well. And I agree with it. I mean, if they were to hold it again next week in theaters, I'd go and watch it again. It's a great piece. Is it flawed? Yeah, a lot of shows have their flaws. But overall, it's a fun ride with great music.
All right, Brian, lay your thoughts on me. Macross Plus, as the not dyed in the wool hardcore Macross fan that Vic and I are, what are your thoughts on it?
You have to have a level of I'll say if we can watch Fast and the Furious 19, we can watch Macross Plus.
I think they're on what, the 43rd movie in that series now?
No, the 63rd.
Oh, sorry. Apologies.
Jesus Christ. You guys obviously can't count. They're on the number 132.
Right. So it's about how many episodes there are in just Macross 7 alone. So I think we're
actually coming out with a TV series.
No, we're not. I'm not doing it. No. All right. Lynette, my dear Lynette, this was your first experience with the Macross franchise. How did you feel coming into it with fresh eyes? Did you enjoy it? Do you think others might?
Hold on, Lynette.
Yes.
Before you answer, I have to caution you. There are two people here whose heart you may break with your answer.
Not even remotely true. I know plenty of people. I am married to a woman who doesn't understand what the hell Macross is. So
yeah, physically impossible, because you know what? If she's wrong about it, then she's wrong. It's okay.
I think all you have is one. I don't think you can handle more. She's the anomaly. I'm just pointing it out, Lynette, that you can't be saying shit like Macross and not expecting these.
I thought I was very smart when I put Macross gods out there.
Fear for your life.
I have to say, visually, I loved it. I enjoyed it. It really was Top Gun anime type stuff. I thought it was pretty cool how the planes transformed very quickly and nobody got hurt during that piece, I enjoyed the soundtrack. Everything was good. Parts of it were confusing, but like with all movies, it didn't really detract from the whole thing. So I'm glad that it matched the cover art. So
yeah, there you go. It wasn't a 3x3 eyes. You got what you paid for with this series. You know what? I'm doing this series a disservice because I didn't delve into how we found this series. I can't believe I skipped over that. We jumped right into it.
I think what happened was we thought that everybody like, oh, this is Rick and Vic. Of course they're gonna be talking about Macross. We know how much they like. But everybody else.
This is like, what's that part of the story? I'm going to delve into this real quick before my final thoughts. It was the early 90s when this dropped. And I didn't even know it existed. Who the hell was it that got us into this? Was it Diego? It was probably Diego.
Probably.
And it was, it was an Animerica cover. One of those anime magazines from the 90s. You used to be able to find them at the off comic book shop. They'd have one. And they had it on the cover. And he brought that to school. And we were like, holy shit, it's more Macross. We had just seen Macross 2, and we'll save that for another episode. And yeah, I don't even remember where we first picked it up. It was probably at like Camelot Music over at Cutler Ridge Mall.
That or Suncoast.
Or Suncoast.
Each episode on VHS by itself.
Yeah, $30 for 30 minutes. Like that's kind of how anime ran back then.
It's important to say that as you're talking about the places that we went to go procure our anime from, like Suncoast, or they're not like down the street from each other.
No.
Each one was a journey to get there. Each one was a 3x3 hours episode worth of travel.
Yes. Suncoast was located in Dayland Mall, which still exists. So
it was and I think this is probably just why I'm never going to remember all this. It's part of the whole bit. We don't remember this. But yes, I do remember seeing the cover art, the original cover art, and thinking, well, this is going to be freaking weird because it's very dramatically different from the original Super Dimension Fortress Macross. But it didn't detract. They're very constant. I knew what I was getting into when I bought it. It's like watching a Fast and the Furious movie, right? You know what you're going to get before you even go into the theater.
First time I saw it in Blockbuster.
Was that a Blockbuster?
Yeah.
Nice.
I was in college and I saw that and I saw the words Macross. I was like, oh, I wonder if Rick and Vic know about this one.
We know all. Once it's willed into the universe, we know it and we feel it in our bones.
It wasn't carried at my Blockbuster. My Blockbuster had Clash of the Bionoids though, so there you go. There's a little taste of doom. We'll get to that one whenever we do You Remember Love. It was one of those things that we had to wait for each release. It didn't come out all at once. So you picked up an episode, you had to wait a few months before you could catch the next one. But this was one of the ones that we were fortunate enough to be able to catch each episode in sequential order. Again, a rarity for the early 90s. So yeah, count your blessings. Actually, I can't say that. You guys are just as fucked as the rest of us because Macross Plus isn't available in the United States anymore. So, not yet anyway. Anyhow, I wanted to take a moment to appreciate that just because it was a big deal as it was the first pair of Macross anime to find its way to the United States after Super Dimension Fortress Macross was mixed into Robotech. And it was the last pair of Macross anime to find its way to the West. And that's just because of...
No thanks to Harmony Gold.
Right, all the rights issues. Harmony Gold smacked down any other attempt to bring any other Macross to the West. So Macross Plus is where it died for the American audiences. And that's why it's revered by a lot of Western Macross fans as peak Macross, because it's like the last thing that they were able to just go to the store and buy even to this day. Like if you wanted to, you got to bootleg it. Any of these other series, even the original, you want to watch it, you got to bootleg it. It's so hard to find.
The original series of Super Dimensional Fortress Macross?
Yeah, if you want to watch the OG Super Dimension Fortress Macross, it is not available. The only way you can find it is if you can find AD Vision did some DVD releases of it, and Animego did some DVD releases of it. It was like a companion thing.
Isn't it available on Amazon?
It's not. It's not. No, it's not. Have at it. Take a look.
I'm checking.
It's been pulled. They had it for a bit there because Harmony Gold released it as something you could stream, but it's all been pulled. The entries are there, but none of it's available. Not even Robotech.
Checking something else real quick.
So you gotta good luck finding it on YouTube. I don't know. Based on what I read recently, some of the forums that even YouTube's getting smacked with copyrights for this now, and it probably has to do with the rights issues that are being ironed out to try and bring all this stuff to the West. But Macross is still one of the hardest animes to get a hold of if you are outside of Japan, just because of all the rights issues circling it. And Macross 2 and Macross Plus were the way Harmony Gold described it is nobody was minding the store when those two got snuck in. So then immediately started raising some hell, and that's it. That's where Macross died in the West. It died in 1992, 94 when this came out. Never to be seen again unless you had resources. And back then, the internet was not one of them.
So which one of us is moving to Japan?
Probably Vic.
Hey, you know what? I keep on trying to convince my company to buy like a pachinko parlor in Japan, and I'll be like, the liaison between the U.S. and Japanese teams.
So now the good news is that the rights issues between Harmony Gold and Big West over who owns Super Dimension Fortress Macross have been resolved, and they agree now on how to handle the franchise. So everything after Super Dimension Fortress Macross is free and clear to be released in the West. And as of this taping, Big West, the company that created the original series, has started releasing things over here. Both, we've had theatrical release. We have 2 more theatrical releases coming out. The first time ever in the West, the Macross Frontier is going to find its way onto American screens.
This June.
Yeah, this June. And toy lines. The toys are starting to make their way over here too. The ridiculously expensive toys. So you want to talk about stupid overpriced stuff. So it's kind of a golden age for the Macross fan. If you remember Macross and you loved it, you remember Macross Plus and you loved it, this is a good time to be around because it seems like we're about to start getting it back after 30 plus years.
Again, no thanks to Harmony Gold.
Now that I've eaten up a chunk of time talking about this, and give you my thoughts on Macross Plus are, of course, that it is still epic, it is still fun, it is still a good time. Is it deep? No, it's not deep. It's a wade pool of character depth, but it is a hell of a fun with great music, excellent action, and beautiful cutting edge animation, especially for its time. Now you look at some of the CG effects and you're like, okay, you tried, but you look past it because it's a product of its time, and it's a good story. It's a good time. Anyway, those are my final thoughts. Angel, you've been pretty silent, but do you have any thoughts on Macross Plus you'd like to share?
I mean, I would have to agree kind of with everybody as a whole. Coming down off of the hentai conversation, this was very enjoyable for me. I'm all about boys and their big toys, so it was a healthy medium for me. I love the comparison. I was set up properly for what to anticipate with this series. I have now refreshed my opinion and aura of anime, and I think I'm prepared for the next one. Set me up for failure.
Nice. That's well, we can thank Lynette for choosing this episode. Add a girl, Lynette. You picked a winner. You saved Angel's fandom.
As soon as the words Macross was coming out of your lips, I could see the anime Woody from these two.
The word no would never come out if someone mentions Macross.
Not a chance. It's worth it. I mean, we've been fans of the series forever now. So it's, we're never going to say no to this. It's always fun for us. But I'm glad that you chose this one and not Macross 2. We'll save that for the Macross 2 episode whenever we get to it. So anyway, folks, I think this is going to be our show for today. We probably ran a little long. I apologize. But thank you for everything. As always, listening, you can check out our website to find all the links and the closing, etc., etc. So, until next time, keep calm, cut your engines, and ride the wind.
You've just been privy to the mindless midlife musings of the anime nerd, presented by Geek Grotto. Follow the podcast on Twitter at Geek Grotto. For show notes and corrections, or for general geeky fun, you can visit our website at geek-grotto.com. If you would like to sponsor the show, you can do so on the podcast's Red Circle host site, redcircle.com/shows/MMMAN. If you're listening to us on your favorite podcast app, please like, follow, and subscribe.